Relationships aren't always sunshine and rainbows. Just like in nature, you can't have rainbows without a little rain.
Journey with us
Shani Goodson
and Dr. Sunjata as we share stories and insights about our thriving, unconventional love life and our unique take on relationships and consensual non-monogamy. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Oh my gosh, it's the last episode of the season.
Last episode, episode 8, last episode of the pilot season of SunShan and Rainbows.
Then save the juicy stuff for you for the last one.
I wonder how many people are here for the last episode and it being that they were here for every episode.
I know. Are you just here for the last one because we're talking about sexy things? If you are only here for the last one, I'm going to send you an assignment.
All right.
Please go back
You have
to
homework.
episode 1, okay? And listen, don't just come here for the salacious stuff, okay?
Right.
No, just kidding. You can come here for whatever you want, okay? Love, liberation, that's what we're here for. So come as you please. If you just here for all the gushy, that's fine.
All right, I guess.
But I'm actually excited to talk about this. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. I like talking about sex. I don't think there's any shame in it. I'm here for it. It's part of the reason I'm here, okay, in this non-monogamous world. I am not ashamed to say that. Part of the reason I'm in this world is for my sexual liberation.
I mean,
I'm hyped.
Same. You know, I always tell people, you know, sex is probably my favorite topic to talk about. Like, and it definitely was a motivator for me to get liberated because, you know, I guess I would say liberated from my monogamous relationship or marriage, because there was so much like sexual curiosity
Oh my gosh.
built up inside of me, and it just, you know, within the context of that relationship, there was no relief valve. There was no way to explore it. And you know, I didn't know that about myself as a young person. And, you know, when I got married, I didn't know that these feelings would start bubbling up, that I would have more sexual ways that I wanted to express myself sexually that weren't possible in that relationship. So,
well, society definitely shames us into thinking that sex is not that important. You know, I see that often.
yeah.
When I got married, I was often told that that's not important. You know, sex is not important. You'll be fine.
Yep.
You know, that's a want, not a need. How's he treating you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
The sex was a big problem in my marriage. And even now in the non-monogamous space, I see so many people like, polyamory is not just about sex to me. Polyamory is not about sex to me at all. Now, it's not just about sex to me, but that's a part of it.
You know what? It's a huge part of it for me too. And again, as I always say as a disclaimer, this show is about us.
Yep.
This isn't to shame anyone. This isn't to say that the way that other people are doing it are wrong or bad. We're just giving you our perspective. I need everyone that's watching this to know that this isn't like, if you watch us talk about non-monogamy and polyamory, then you understand everything there is to know about how everyone navigates polyamory and non-monogamy. It's not the case.
It's not.
You're just getting insights into how we navigate it.
Right.
And you just happen to be tuning in on an episode where we're talking about how we navigate it regarding sex. And we are two very sexual people.
You get a little glimpse into why we feel like we're as aligned as we are, because we do things, we do math very similarly. We process things very similarly. So like he said, we're not saying that it's right. What we're saying is right. We're just saying this is how we do it. And please distill from this whatever is valuable to you. Yeah, so let's get started. Like, let's talk about what would you like to start with?
I mean, I think, you know, at the foundation of it all, I think starting off with like how we navigate our autonomy and our liberation within our, you know, within a sexual context.
Within our relationship.
And within our relationship, because, you know, again, for people who've watched this podcast and previous episodes, you know that we value liberation and autonomy and agency in a major way. And I know there's a lot of, you know, preconceived notions about what that can mean in a sexual context, and a lot of fears and a lot of stigma around being free sexually. I know I've seen in online spaces and having conversations with people that people instantly go towards like all the negative, bad things that can happen, and don't think that I would think about those things or figure out ways how to navigate those things, et cetera. So we're gonna
let's talk about that.
Touch on all of those things,
Yeah.
but just starting with like, what does sexual liberation mean to you? And how's that manifest in your adult non-monogamy world?
I mean, a lot of this just has to do with I want to do what I want to do. When a spirit moves me, when an opportunity presents itself to do something that I want to do, I want to be able to do it. But I also want to be able to feel fulfilled in my sexual life. Sex was definitely an issue in my marriage. We didn't really align on how often we should do it or how it should be, etc. And that was probably one of the breaking points of my relationship, of my monogamous marriage. So I'm kind of here to do things and experience things that I wasn't able to experience, or even voice that I wanted to experience when I was in my marriage. Like there was just things I would want that I was just too like ashamed to ask for, or I would ask for things and he would kind of like laugh them off or be like, no, I'm not doing that. So, feelings of shame, embarrassment about some of the things I wanted to try and experiment with. I would like to have that ability and that autonomy to do so without judgment. And to even have a partner who wants to participate in a lot of the things I want to do. That's important to me.
Yeah, yeah. Resonates. Same for me. Like I can share that, man, I've learned so much about myself, even before I got here. And here is, divorced and free to love how I want to love, live how I want to live in these ways. I didn't know that I had certain capacities and desires that I've since learned that I have. Um, I just knew that I just knew I had the desire to have sex with more than the same person for the rest of my life. And I didn't want to have to lie to cheat to do that. That was the genesis of it for me in terms of, becoming free in this way. I knew I could not, I knew there was no way I was going to be able to be monogamous for the rest of my life. And I was kind of upset and bitter that I wasn't told that to a degree. Like it felt like an unrealistic expectation, and it just seemed like there wasn't like enough information to help a young person like myself like really parse that out, in terms of like there's a chance that you may not be able to because some people are highly sexual, and if you're highly sexual, being monogamous for the rest of your life is not going to work.
So, are you saying that you wish you had known to assess the alignment that you and your ex-wife had in the sexual
Yes.
like bucket? Because
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. That's a part of it. That's a
Okay.
part of one of the things that I'm speaking very broadly about, that I wish there was more like conversation to like inform young people who are dating
Yeah.
to like ask these type of questions and like
Because again, you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, and like reflect. Because again, we're told to get married for other reasons.
Right.
And
Sex is
then
the bottom of that reason.
right, but then what does it end up being? One of the main reasons why so much infidelity and cheating and divorces happen. So anyway, that was a soapbox, but I had to jump on it real quick. um, but in terms of like, since I got here, since I've been free, and what it means to me is like, again, similar to what you said, it's like I just love knowing I can do what I want to do when I want to do it with who I want to do it with. And that I can cultivate relationships with people who trust me to know that I'm going to do that in ways that are mindful and considerate and healthy, and not stigmatize, judge, whatever. And when I do come across the people who want to stigmatize and judge, which I did in early relationships that I was still figuring out my way in this, I've since learned to ask the right questions up front around what people's like, drive is like. How do they feel about certain things? Like, this is who I am. What do you think about that? And I won't get into a relationship that's gonna, have any romance or sexual context, or connotation if I know that we're not aligned in those ways.
That's always a joke I make. I always say that Sunjata didn't really start falling in love with me until we had a phone conversation about sex. And then he was like, hold on, I like you now.
Let me tell y'all. So when you join polyamory, when you join some of these polyamory groups, one of the things they do is, ask you to give an intro, say a little bit about yourself. And I got to the point where it was like, has high sex drive, was in my intro because that's just not a misalignment I wanted to navigate. You know, if you don't have a high sex drive, we're not going to vibe. So when Shani told me that she had a high sex drive, I knew there was a greater chance that we would vibe. In addition to all the other wonderful qualities and things that we were aligning on.
Yeah, you already
But that
know
was
it's
like
sex that moved the needle. No,
that's just so key. It is. We can, because here's the thing, we can be all those other things align and we can be great friends. You know, it's just like, are we going to go over into the sexual romantic, you know, context? I'm not going to like discard. Let's say we were having those conversations and I noticed that we had all those alignments. We would still been vibing. We'd have been friends. Like I have friends who I love who are women who we don't align in those ways, but we still spend time together, et cetera, et cetera.
Been more than friends. If just sex drive was it, I think we could have found like a friend, like a benefit. Like anyway, we're getting off topic. Okay. In our last episode, we talked about like communication, and we touched a little bit on this idea of how do we communicate with each other about sex, like outside of our relationships, since we're non-monogamous. And we talked a bit about this idea that sometimes even non-monogamous people want to have some level of control and they want to know what you're going to do before you do it. I just want to make sure we're clear that that's not a part of our relationship at all. Like we do not have an agreement. We have never, ever even had it on the table to talk to each other about what we're going to do before we do it. We don't even have an agreement about telling each other what we did after we did it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people will ask things like, well, aren't you scared? Like, what about your health? You know, what about STI risks and all of those types of questions? And I want to talk a little bit about that because to me, there's a little flaw in some logic there. But I'd like to hear what you think about that also.
Well, what came up for me, well, one, you know, because I'm so liberation based, like I can't agree. Now, early in my journey, I agreed to like say, I'm going to tell you before I have sex with someone. I would say that to certain loves.
Not me.
Yeah, before Shani came along. And I learned, you know, that just wasn't like natural for me. You know, I would get in search of certain situations where I may be seeing someone, we kick it a few times, then all of a sudden one day some chemistry just pops off and we realize, you know what? This is our moment. Like we want to have sex. And I was like, oh shoot, do I need to stop and pick up the phone and like send a text or a call? Like, no, I'm grown. No.
I'm grown and this person is not above the person who I'm already in a relationship with is not above the person who I'm currently relating with. Like, why does this person who you're currently relating with need to pause what they're doing so that you can stop and inform your other person? To me, if I'm the person that's in the situation with you, I'm feeling some kind of way. Like, why do you have to report about my life to somebody who I'm not in a relationship with?
And that's only relevant for us because we are very much egalitarian.
Right.
We're very much like, you know, relationship anarchists. We don't do hierarchy, but a lot of people who do hierarchy, that means something and that's relevant to them. And that's them. That's their relationship. But in the
ways, just don't practice.
In the ways that we think and the ways that we like to show up in the world and in our relationships, and again, being very much liberation centered, that wouldn't make sense. That is literally devaluing the time that we're spending with that other person, devaluing that intimate moment and saying, what I have over here is more important than what we are doing and what we have right now and what we're cultivating right now. And I don't like building relationships that way. I like to honor the relationship, honor the moment. And I realized that was, you know, didn't connect with the idea of me agreeing with someone else that I would let them know if I'm about to have sex with someone else. And again, you know, this is something I had to learn about myself over time, just being in this, you know, space, coming out of a conventional monogamous marriage. And, you know, these lessons have taught me that I should have said early on. I wish I would have said that, like, I'll agree to try things, but I shouldn't agree that I'm going to do things. Because ultimately, when I realized I couldn't do it, I would tell people, and it would make them upset. And some people would be like, but you said you would, as if I'm not allowed to change my mind.
Right. And I think, early in my relationship, I would have situations, even when I was early in my journey, even when I was talking to someone, they would be like, if you're thinking about having sex with someone else, I want you to tell me. And I would be so like, just disturbed by that. I wouldn't I was never able to make that type of promise. And I think I mentioned in a previous episode that, you know, I put myself in the position of the person who is new. I don't necessarily want my relationships, the goings on of my personal relationship shared with somebody who I'm not in a relationship with. That was kind of what my stance was there. The other thing I think about is like, don't I trust you? If we're talking about unbarriered sex without a condom or some other form of protection, I'm already trusting you to care for yourself, we do share our test results with each other regularly. We do go get tested together regularly. I don't think there's any benefit to my health to knowing beforehand.
So,
because what's the option? I mean, the option is we can use a barrier. Like
yeah, but people don't think that way. So I wanted to go there, and you've already gone there because I know there's people watching and listening like, but what, the reason why they're like, we want to know is because of their health and their safety, for safety reasons. And I'm just going to say it. I think that a lot of people use that safety thing as a disguise for control.
Yes.
And it's a way to control it. Like the whole idea of them being fearful for their safety. It's just a way to control, and it's a way to like stop their love or their partner from going out and having sex with other people or having sex with other people in the way that they really want to. And because the reality is, if someone was really worried about their safety, then they would just make sure they're barriered
all the time
with me instead of trying to make sure that I'm barriered or I'm XYZ or anything that I'm doing, with other people. It's like my thing is we can only control ourselves. And I think that's always the best solution. But let's talk like in more detail about like risk management. I know you just touched on it. But one of the things I'll say is when I got into this space, when I joined Facebook groups and they had like local meetups and things. There's one group I joined, particularly that was like the first group I joined where I really learned a lot. And there was a lot of conversation about sexual health and getting tested and frequency of getting tested and the importance of these things and the importance of understanding that, we're in a community of people who are free and liberated. So there's a chance that we're going to, have common loves, common partners, common sex partners, and we need to take care of each other. And, that's one of the first things that when my monogamous friends would ask me about being non-monogamous and polyamorous, they would always say, but what about, STDs?
Always.
That was like one of the things that people instantly went to. And the irony behind that is that most in the monogamous world where people are cheating, they're not talking about these things.
Thank you. They're hiding it. And
they're
because
hiding
they're
it.
Monogamous, they're probably not even getting tested.
And they get tested as
probably
much.
Count on one hand how many times I got tested while I was married. Whereas now I would say non-monogamous people in general, as a rule, are much more conscientious about their test results and are much more conscientious about asking to see results before you have sex with somebody unbarriered. And we're much more likely to, like, if somebody's feathers are ruffled about because you asked them about your test results, we're very likely to be like, you know what, red flag. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And oftentimes, you said unbarriered. We'll share test results whether we're going to have barrier sex or unbarriered sex. And I know some people have different things on that, but most people will share those results when they start engaging in anything sexual. And also, like, I got tested when I was married, like before I got married, and that was it. I didn't get tested again. And then since I've been non-monogamous, I get tested multiple times a year. Multiple, not just one, multiple times a year since I've been non-monogamous. And
especially if you're dating new people, because a lot of times new people will be like, I need to see results from you within the last, 90 days.
Yeah.
They're not really they're not accepting that test from last year, so.
Yeah. And so what I found is that, and I think, I feel like statistically it might be out there as well that, most people who pass STIs and STDs, are monogamous people. And just in general, they're just not having these conversations the way that we do. It actually feels safer over here is the gist of it.
And even if neither of us have sex with someone new, we still get tested because, he has loves that he might see, and maybe they are experiencing new loves. And so they need, you know, so we're constantly getting tested, like he said, multiple times a year, 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is much more than I can say. I've probably been tested more in the last 2 years than I was in, you know, 5 years or 8 years of my marriage. So, and my ex did cheat. So, you know what I mean? Like he could have brought something back to me and I probably would have never known unless I got pregnant and got, you know, tested at the gynecologist once a year. So that's what we'll say about that. If you have other questions about that or comments, like I would love to hear about that. But this is just, it's a common question, I would say. This is the most common thing that I get when I talk about being non-monogamous.
Yeah, same. So I think we've given them some glimpses into like how we approach it from a liberation and autonomous standpoint. Talked about like risk management. Now let's into our segment for the day, which is called
Sexy Time.
Sexy Time. Where we give y'all way too much information and y'all really need to be knowing about our personal sex lives. But because we signed up to do this podcast, we got to give y'all some.
A little something. And I know you want to know.
I know some of y'all want to know. And, you know, also I want to, you know, destigmatize, you know, talking about these things. So, you know, I'm going to share. And it is a little uncomfortable for me to share about my sex life publicly in this way. But it also is also empowering. And I also can appreciate, you know, how me doing it may just help someone in some way. Who knows? So here we go. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about give them some insight into our sex life and then maybe like our sex lives with others. But like they probably want to know about us first. What do you think?
Sure.
What do you want to tell them?
I mean, it's all you, boo, because so I was Sunjata's often say, you know, he's like, there's parts of me that aren't for the public. So I'm gonna let him set boundaries here because if you follow me on social media, Shan Goody, you know I post a lot of crazy things on there. So I have fewer boundaries when it comes to this. So I'm gonna let you set the pace.
Yeah, I will say though, I gotta say it. I think it's ironic. I think I may have said it before, but most of the stuff you post don't really be about yourself. It just be like random nonsense. And I think people like extrapolate to think that some of it's about you. And so it's interesting because I feel like it's not you're not as like
You're trying to say I'm not as much of a hoe as I portray myself on social media. That's what you're trying to say.
You know, you post sometimes like I'm only a hoe on social media. Like I feel like you had a meme that said that, right? We're pro hoe, by the way. We're both pro hoe, and by hoe we mean like people who have sex with more than one person
and do what they want to do.
And do what they want to do. Like hoe slut is not a slur over here. It's like if that's what's the definition for that? I have sex with more than one person.
Slutty for sure.
At the same time.
I think slutty.
Oh, hoe has more of like a payment connotation, right?
So like hoe is like more derogatory. I don't know. I think they're both derogatory.
And we mix it up nowadays. People be like, you know, we make words mean different things. So anything that means has sex with multiple people around the same time at the same time, I own that. That's my life. It is what it is.
And you already know because he's a man, you know, like there's less of a stigma around him owning that than me. Because if I say, you know, I have sex with whoever I want, it's like, ew. You know, y'all might be looking at Sunjata like, you let your woman do X, Y, and Z and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we deal with those things. He does not, because he'd be like, yeah, she a hoe like me.
Listen, look. Listen, it's again all pro. I'm pro hoe. So, and honestly, like for me, it's secure. It brings me security to know that she's free because I don't got to feel guilty about being free. You know what I mean? Like that's. I want someone who values freedom, sexual freedom, the way I do, so I can do me. So if she got her own stuff going on, or she knows that she's just as free to go out and do what she wants when she wants, she's not going to be on my back when I'm out doing what I want to do. And also, I'm not that dude. I'm not going to like misuse, you know, my male privilege in that way. Because I know there's inherent male privilege where I could use societal tropes to guilt her into not being free and liberated sexually. And I'm not doing that. So yeah, she's free. She can do what she wants. And the point I was making earlier though is it just seems like I feel like people think that you're more prolific than you on Facebook than you actually are. That's all.
Blowing me up. Dang,
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm a prolific hoe. Let them think that.
It's hilarious. But it's in terms of our sex life. So the cool thing is that, you know, we talk about the buckets, right? You know, we have this like low, medium, or high like alignment around something. Like, you know, very early on, it showed up that we had like a high alignment sexually. And what that means is like, you know, is we like a lot of the same things.
Mhm.
We have a similar like energy around like desire, like how often we want to do it, which is all the time. We're pretty much both like, hey, whenever, like it's on. And, you know, it pretty much, there isn't, you know,
Wake me up.
wake me up. Like it's any point you can get it. You want it, you need it, I got it. Like, like it's like that's kind of like our energy. And you know, she mentioned earlier, like in her marriage, there was times where, you know, there was rejection or things she wanted to do that she couldn't. Like, none of that exists here. Like, it's like whatever we want to express sexually, we can share with each other. There's very little that has emerged to this point that we've wanted to do sexually that the other person hasn't been willing to explore or try. And there's also no issue if it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go do that over there because maybe me and that person are more aligned on that particular interest than we are here. Cool, all good. That's one of the benefits of being non-monogamous and polyamorous is that we have, you know, several loving connections that we can explore different things with in different ways. But in this dynamic, I'm really grateful that, you know, there hasn't really been anything that I've been curious about, wanting to do, wanting to try that Shani hasn't been like, let's do it. And that's been pretty dope.
You know, he said the thing that he mentioned about you can go over there and get that kind of brings to mind the fact that I also date women, you know, like and he, you know, is not a woman. So there are things that I get in those connections that I couldn't get in in this connection, in this like, you know, heterosexual connection. So that's something to consider.
Yeah.
I think some women are in the polyamory space because they don't want to have to choose. A lot of times, if you're bisexual and monogamous, then that means you have to pick, right? If you like both genders, or if you like all genders, now you have to decide to stay with one gender forever, and you could be missing out on some things that you really crave and desire. So that's something I like to think. That's one of the reasons I'm also in this non-monogamous space, to try to get more variety in the ways that I crave and desire. And I think same thing for you. Like there's a level of variety and fun to having, even if it's like the same people, there's still a level of like variety and like novelty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like one of the things when I was married and monogamous that I used to daydream about and fantasize about was like having threesomes. Like I had never had a threesome before getting married. And it was like I just couldn't get it out of my mind. Like it's like, and I would think like, man, am I gonna die without ever having like to have that experience?
Die.
Because, you know, and my ex wasn't into that. She wasn't anything she was interested in, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, this is one of those things where as I got older, got married young, but as I got older, I started learning that I craved, and it was like there was no way to quench that craving within my current situation. And you know, one of the things I can share is that it's been pretty dope and pretty exciting about our connection is that we've been able to have some shared experiences in that way. You know, with threesomes or and sometimes moresomes, where you know we've been able to, you know, just kind of, you know, explore that desire, that kink in that way, and that's been really dope.
Yeah, I'm like, what other like adventure? There's kink exploration. That's another kind of, I would say, would you say like threesomes and group activities? I would say that's a kink of sorts.
Yeah, I
Like
think so.
there's some
Definitely a kink.
exhibitionism and voyeurism there.
Hmm.
But other like kinks that maybe you would be a little bit, you know, ashamed to bring up in other relationships. I think we've talked about this, but lots of kink. There's been some kink exploration.
Hmm.
We're not gonna get into all of those details, but kink, you know, that kind of stuff is fun. And I think when we talk about the buckets, the ability to be that intimate and the ability to be that like vulnerable and know that you can say this to somebody and they're not gonna judge you
Hmm.
and they might even try it. you know, it is very comforting.
Yeah,
It's definitely very comforting.
Yeah. And I will say, I know you touched on it, but another one of the benefits is like, the freedom. Like I love, so one of the things about how I show up in the world sexually is that sometimes, sex can be like giving somebody a hug. Like it's just like a way to like share intimate embrace. It's a deeper hug in a lot of ways. Like, what I mean by that is it doesn't always have to be like I'm making love to someone or I'm in this like, deeply high frequency in terms of like how many like we're dating all the time type of connection. It might be more casual in nature. It might be like a more friendship leaning relationship than it is, more of a deep life partnership, romantic connection, but there still could be some sex in it. I love that flexibility in the ways that I can have sex and who I can have sex with and why and how. It might be someone I might connect with once a year, and that's cool, or it could be a friend that there's a little bit of a romantic element and we don't see each other often. It might be like what we call comet relationship, where it's like we pick up where we left off when we see each other. We might see each other once, twice a year and have sexual, engage sexually, and that's cool too. And then there's people who I see more regularly and we get to have sex and, just the variety, the freedom, the ability to share for some people, like, again, when I say it's like a hug, it's just like it, how you can hug someone and just give them a kiss on the cheek, which for some people is like, if I like you enough and I'm attracted to you enough, we can have sex and it can, just be dope in that way. And it don't have to be anything all heavy. Like that's what I'm trying to communicate when I say it's like a hug. It doesn't have to be any like heavy, like, well, if we're having sex, that means it comes with this whole list of other like expectations and responsibilities. That's what I'm trying to convey with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It seemed like you were like questioning. So ask questions out loud, maybe to help the other people
I'm
who are
trying
trying
so
to
you're
process that.
saying that you enjoy that you have the freedom to kind of have any relationship that you want, and it can include whatever things you want, including sex, and it won't be a problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's different from like previous non-monogamous relationships, or are you just pointing out the difference between
I'm just
this
pointing out
and
the
your
difference
monogamous
and difference in monogamous relationships. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. I have that. I would say I don't. I wouldn't say that I really have any like, you know, um, dedicated, very like romantic loves outside of Sunjata right now. In the way that he kind of has more, he has more of that than I do, and so a lot of my relationships outside of Sunjata, if they involve sex, aren't what you would imagine they are. Like they aren't these, like he said, these expectations, these partner escalator,
Boyfriend, girlfriend energy.
No, they're really friendships. And I kind of call them like intimate friendships. Sometimes people will call them friends with benefits. I don't particularly like that term because it devalues it. And I think a lot of times people aren't actually friends when they're friends with benefits. They just fuck buddies. Should I bleep that out? Maybe I will.
No, this is
it's an adult show. And I don't really do fuck buddies. I do friends, real friends who I have sex with sometimes. And so,
and that's what I was trying to convey too when I say sex and be like a hug is like, yeah, and it's not all that heaviness and all these like the boyfriend girlfriend energy expectations. It could be like an intimate friendship in that way.
So I feel like what might be misunderstood is this idea that can be like a hug. I think what Sunjata is trying to say is like the way that you connect in a hug, the way that you physically embrace each other and you feel like a physical connection when you hug somebody, and it feels really good. That sex can also be that. A hug, I think sex is never quote unquote casual because you got to open yourself up. The most vulnerable parts of you are exposed in a way that maybe is not the case in a hug, but it's the same connection idea. Like you're doing them for the same like reason. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that can help. I like intimate friendship. I also like the idea that like, I can give anyone a hug, like where some people like sex is only reserved for this person. It's like, no, I can give anyone a hug, and it's like, it's a hug. I can give someone a hug without like this whole laundry list of what it all means and expectations that come behind it. That's kind of what I'm trying to convey when I say that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So we talked about sex in our own life. We've talked a little bit about sex outside, and we've talked about like what sex means to us in our polyamory and non-monogamous journeys. What else you got? Anything else?
I think we've given them a lot. We want to hear from y'all. Like, what are y'all curious about? What didn't we cover that you may want to learn more about? What do you want us to go deeper on?
Yeah.
So, next season we can possibly go a little deeper.
Yeah, let us know, and let us like push and draw his boundaries a little bit. Let us know, like, push him a little bit. Try to get him to talk a little bit more about it. No, I'm just joking. But any questions y'all want, and any questions, anything y'all interested to have us talk about in terms of sex, I'm here for it. I want to do it.
Yeah. Thanks for being here on this journey with us, y'all. And we'll see y'all for season 2. Let us know what y'all want to hear. Ask questions. And
have a whole different setup. I'm so excited. We got plans for y'all. Okay, we got plans. So come back to us next season, y'all.
All right, y'all. Till next time.
Bye.
Peace. Thank you for listening to SunShan and Rainbows. If you enjoyed the show, please show your support by liking, commenting, and sharing this episode.
Please also subscribe to our media platform, Sustainable Solutions Media, and follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Solutions Media.